Yay! All right, it's so great to see everybody. I am so happy to see all the smiling faces. I was really jealous of Dee looking at her background. She's in her office. She's not really at some Caribbean island, which makes me feel a little bit better being stuck here in the house. But I'm really glad that we were able to get together today. It's been a long time. We're going to kind of follow our typical meeting format. We're also delighted to have with us our district governor today, Rob Hanley. If y'all can see, he's got his district governor hat on for the year. So welcome to Rob. We're going to go ahead and start with this our regular meeting. I'm called to order the April 14th meeting of the Rotary Club of Greenville and turn it over to David Carfelite for our invocation and pledge. Yes.
Good morning, all. First, if you would bow your head and join me in a prayer. Divine source of all that is, welcome before you, seeking your presence and that Holy Spirit of yours to enter our hearts and minds and lift them up to the height of inspired humanity, that we might not only simply rely on our own merits, but on yours, who are above all things, and in all things, and for all things, especially your people. Grant us, as we seek to be better citizens of a country that seeks to be a light, humble us to do our part only and make a way for others to do their part. We call your Spirit upon this gathering so it may bear much fruit in service above self and pleasing to you. Amen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as of 3 o'clock yesterday, 41% of Greenville had filled out their census form, which leaves 59% of our 250,000 people not yet filling out their census. So I'm asking you to do your patriotic duty. And if it's not you, cool. Mention it to a neighbor, mention it to a family member. And with that, over my left shoulder, if you can find me out there, is the American flag. And I ask you to flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, David. Now we're going to go to Bob Howard for our member news.
Bob had to step out for a minute, and so I've been visiting him. I've been helping him with personal training during this time on his abs, and if any of you would like to have abs like this, I am available for hire and for coaching. So Bob will be back in a second, but he asked me, since I worked him out pretty well this morning, he's taking a shower, but asked me to handle the member news for him. And I'm got some member news from Ingenious, our member Chris Manley's company. It's an upstate web design and digital marketing firm, and it has relocated from its former Vardry Street location to a standalone office building at 1012 East North Street. So congratulations on that move. Glad that business is good. I think that Susie Nelson Tumblin just deserves some recognition. That trip to Honduras was canceled due to the virus, and they were already down there, and after 2 canceled flights, an almost complete lockdown of travel, a doctor's report of good health, a State Department letter, calls to the embassy, and calls to state politicians, she is home, and President Scott. I think we should give Susie credit, some member attendance credit for all this work that she did to get home. We're happy about that. Also, our member Kathy McAfee, America's Marketing Motivator is her title, wants us all to know that she's working with some free public webinars, and the webinars information is on our club's Facebook page, and the webinars are on essential communications in turbulent times. We've missed the first one, which was April the 14th from 10 to 11, but there's another one April 16th on Thursday from 10 to 11, April 22nd on Wednesday from 12 to 1, and you can go to the club's Facebook page and see how to log on and all that, or you've got Kathy's membership information. I'd like to conclude with just some few thoughts and remarks about the virus. First, during this time of the virus, we have learned some things, and one of them, many parents have discovered that the teacher is not the problem with all those children home all day long. Secondly, for the first time in history, we can save the human race by laying in front of the TV and doing nothing. Let's not screw this up. Third, remember that 9 p.m. is the time to remove your day pajamas and put on your night pajamas. Fourth, my cleaning lady just messaged me to say that she will be working from home today and will send me instructions on what to do. And finally, I've completed my 90-day trial of 2020. How do I cancel? And thank you very much, and Bob will be back in a moment.
Good job, Bob. Entertaining as always. Thank you. Again, it's so great to see everybody. I miss my Rotary family, and it's great to see everyone's smiling faces and have a little bit of more normalcy and routine, even if we can't be together in person. I feel more comfortable knowing that we're all here together, and thank goodness for virtual meetings. The last public Rotary event we had was a park cleanup, which was on March the 14th, and that was just right at the beginning of this COVID-19 thing, and we weren't quite told to keep our social distance yet, but we had a record number of people, a great group of Rotarians as well as Interact members from Greenville High. And the park is looking really good. It's the North Main Park, which is also known as Rotary Park. And our next one is still scheduled for May the 16th. We don't know if that'll happen or not. It may end up being postponed, but it'd be great if that did happen and we could all be outside keeping our social distance and working together as Rotarians do. We have continued with lunchtime conversations. We had one last week. This is kind of a follow-up from our peace conference. It's just a chance to get together and talk about a topic. We're given a topic, and it's just to share ideas and thoughts, learn to be good communicators and listeners. Teresa Miller does an outstanding job with that, and we have another one scheduled for May the 5th. So check your Rotary calendar and consider signing up for that. Alexandria Elementary School, this is our spring break week, and we had planned on we had a long list of groceries to provide to send home for 25 families, and a lot of things that we're doing this spring, including a cookout on next Monday, and all that's been put on hold. And we've been in constant contact with the principal to see what we can do. The principal feels like they're in pretty good shape right now because the school district is providing meals. I was on a conference call Friday. One of the school board members was there, and she did state that they are concerned about families that are working that aren't able to go and get those meals. So I emailed her again yesterday and said, listen, I know I think the principal's scared to give us any names or addresses because of HIPAA and privacy. But if the district will get them, or if a little bird would leave a note under a rock with an address, we can get groceries and books to families. So we're still monitoring that, and we're waiting to pull the trigger to do whatever we can do to help them out. Also, I just want to let everybody know that I know these are challenging times, and there's probably some Rotarians who are struggling, some small business people. I know people just know people that have had the virus and are need prayers and thoughts. So just let us know if there's any way that we can help you as our Rotarian family members. One thing that we are doing is if we can help you as a small business, send that information in. In the past, we've refrained from really promoting businesses because once you do for one, you do for all. But these are special times, and I think people are struggling. And if there's a way that we can help the business by buying a gift certificate for future service or doing whatever we can, just send that information into Michelle at the office, and we'll publish that in a newsletter. And also, Bob touched on it about the homeschooling, but we have a number of members. I'm friends with some of you Rotarians on Facebook, and I've enjoyed seeing the different things you're doing with their children to help homeschool them. It's really pretty fun, and it's also interesting how seeing people. I can see all your some of your office settings right now, so send pictures in. I think it's fun for us to look at a newsletter again, and we can't necessarily have that touching connection, but we can still have a connection through our newsletter and sharing our information. So I think that's all the announcements. If anybody has anything else, please let me know. We're going to call on Jane Dyer to introduce our speaker today. And if anyone has any other questions for me, feel free to chat with me.
Thanks, Scott. So good to see everybody. So good to be a part of Rotary. As you can see, we have 70 people with us today almost, so that is really awesome. Like all of you, I've missed being with my Rotary family, and it's just great to be back in touch again. It only takes a split second to get distracted, but once we do, distractions steal hours of our most valuable time every day. Paul Kingsman is a sought-after expert on how to be distraction-proof. He teaches people how to maintain focus to achieve outstanding results. Paul knows the importance of keeping focus in life's split seconds firsthand. He trained for 13 years to swim a 2-minute backstroke race at the Olympics and won a medal by only 4/100ths of a second. After retiring from competitive swimming, he applied the same success habits he had developed in sport to business, going on to achieve big results with well-known companies both in his native country of New Zealand and here in the U.S. He was also a charter member of Harbor Rotary and San Rafael in the San Francisco Bay Area. Today, as professional speaker and executive coach, Paul focuses his expertise in the financial services arena. During his time here with us, Paul's going to give you practical tools so you can be distraction-proof and produce your own history-making results in what you do every day. Please welcome Paul Kingsman.
Thanks, Jane. Often when I'm getting ready to, thank you for the silent claps there. Often when I'm getting ready to speak and get up on stage in front of an audience, I'll often have somebody come up to me and right before I go on, and they'll say, hey, what was it like going out and swimming in the Olympics? What was it like going out and swimming in front of 12,000 people? What was it like going out and swimming in front of 12,000 people wearing nothing more than your underwear? And so I want to just give you a glimpse as to what that's like, not in my underwear, but for you as professional people, and you come from all different backgrounds, all different businesses, and so I want you to just think of a scenario in your mind where you've had a fantastic opportunity, particularly in business if you're involved in that. And I want to paint the scene for you relative to what you experience as an Olympian, but on your terms as a business person. So imagine this scenario. You are seated in your office, and across the desk from you is a prospect. And this prospect is someone you have longed to do business with. You have longed to have them on board as a client with you, and you have learned everything about them. You know their wedding anniversary, you know their birth dates, you know their children's birth dates, you know where they went to college. You haven't stalked them, but not far from that, because it's so important that they become a client of yours. And so as you're going through this presentation, you're becoming aware that today you're going to know whether they're in or out with you, whether they've come on board or not. There's going to be no indecision. There's going to be no taking an extra day to think about it. And you have pursued this person for 13 years, wanting them to become a client, which is how long I had trained for before I went on to compete at my second Olympic Games and win a medal. So 13 years of your life has been invested into having this person come on board and work with you. Think about how you're feeling right now. Think about the emotions that are going through you. Think about the thoughts that are going through you. Some of the apprehension maybe, some concerns, maybe one or two little fears. And right when that person, you can see that they're thinking about what you're saying, they're considering what you're saying, right at that point where the pressure's building, a guy with a TV camera comes bursting through your office door, and he comes running up to you and looks at the prospect and back at you and down at the contract that's on the desk and back at you, and the tension is just building. And then all of a sudden your office ceiling just splits in two, just from one end to the other, and opens up, and you look up into the faces of 12,000 screaming people. And they're chanting and they're cheering and they're saying, go, 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 you can do it, just keep going, go. And right then, when that prospect picks up that pen and you know they're ready, you know they're poised to hopefully sign on that dotted line, the TV camera just locks straight onto you, and your friends that are watching and peering off around each other just go silent, and the 12,000 people, there's an immediate hush in the stadium, and the world is watching you getting ready to perform. You look down, and all you're wearing is this. This is all you have on for the world to see you perform in. Now, how are you feeling? Maybe a little concerned, a little frightened, a little exposed, very vulnerable. And in our brief time together today, I want to touch on that point about being vulnerable and encourage you to keep going with whatever it is that you're pursuing, especially given these times, because it's only through going through those difficult times that you come out the other side with the reward. And for me, as an Olympian, going for an Olympic medal, that's what the reward looks like. And those get put around your neck at the end of the race, but there are many, many times where you're going through these moments first. And what we have right now are many people that want to have these moments. They want the medal winning moments and the medal winning feelings, but they don't want to go through these times. They want the rewards, they want the clients, but they don't want to have to stretch to do a little bit of extra work, or they don't want to stretch to put in a little bit of extra focus. And so briefly today, I just want to share a little bit about where these come from and have you see that it's applicable to all areas of our lives. As you heard, my wife and I moved from California. I was in a Rotary Club out in San Rafael in Marin County. I chartered a Rotary Club and met fantastic people there, and they were enthusiastic about what they were doing and what we were building and what we were being a part of, and it was easy to see their passion. And so first up, these medals start from having distraction-proof passion. And I'm not going to talk too much about the passion piece today, only to say that you've got to have a very clear picture in your mind as to where you're heading and where it is you're wanting to end up. When I was 8 years old, I started swimming, and by the time I was 9, I knew exactly where I wanted to go. When I was 9 years old, I saw the Montreal 1976 Olympics. And for me, that was it. Now, some of you are busy trying to work out if I was 9 in 1976, how old am I now? I'm 52, so don't worry about that. But when I saw those Montreal Olympics, that was it. I had no idea at 9 exactly what it was going to take to earn that medal. I had no idea what it was going to cost, and very fortunately neither did Mum and Dad, because it cost a bunch, but I knew that was what I wanted. And I wrote it down on a piece of paper that I wanted to go to the Olympic Games and win a medal. And so then set about that journey that was going to take 13 years to eventually win that medal. And I'd ask you today, what are those things that you're passionate about? Be it business, be it family life, be it relationships with spouses, relationships with children. What are those things that you absolutely love doing, that you enjoy most, and want to deepen and want to get even more proficient at? And so I challenge you today, even though we're remote from each other, to just take a few minutes throughout today thinking about those things that you are most passionate about. those things that you love doing, enjoy doing the most, because everybody can get passionate about something, but it's making it last over the long term that's most difficult. And so from being passionate about winning that medal and training for that medal, the next step is priorities, setting distraction-proof priorities. One of the priorities for me, for instance, in 1988 was being in bed by 8:30 at night. I was training 6 hours a day, and I'll share with you what that day looked like shortly, but I was in bed at 8:30 every night when I was training back in New Zealand. And that meant that if a reporter called at 8:10, we had 20 minutes of good conversation. If the reporter called at 8:35, he got mum. And my mother she had a double black belt in gatekeeping. If you wanted to get to me and speak to me after 8:30, you were going to have to get through my mother, and there was no way that was going to happen. And I'd hear these guys trying to get through, and it was, hey, I'm Mark from 91 FM, I just got to talk with Paul, it's urgent. And I'd hear mum say, he's in bed. And then I'd hear this guy respond back, but it's urgent, the world record's gone, and we just got to get a soundbite for tomorrow morning's use. And I'd hear mum respond again, he's in bed, call him back tomorrow. And then you'd hear these guys for a third time, but it's urgent, we just got to have 30 seconds with him. And her response was, he's in bed, call him back tomorrow. And what was interesting from that was when I'd call back the next day and I'd ask for the guy, the reporter who called me the evening before, invariably what I'd hear was this: hey, we just wanted to catch up. We just wanted to see how you were doing. We just wanted to check in and see what's up, nothing urgent. And if there's one thing I learned from that time, it's this, that if we fail to prioritize our time, other people will. Other people will always have their priorities that they want to put right in front of you. And so thinking about what you're most passionate about, how are you going to prioritize the activities and the steps that you need to take to achieve that, regardless of what it is. My wife and I are coming up on 30 years of marriage in July this year, and one of the best pieces of advice we got when we first got married was to date once a week, and we still continue to do that. And now that we've moved from California to here, one of our favorite places has been down by the river, and Greenville's just got some fantastic places to walk around. Like I said, with dates, they don't have to be expensive, but we make that time to spend with each other. So that's always a priority. And so I'd ask you, what are those key core priorities that you need to set down to keep that passion alive for it, whatever it might be? Because then comes the most difficult piece. Then comes the practice piece. So we've got distraction-proof passion followed by distraction-proof priorities, but then comes distraction-proof practice. And this is the tough bit. So when I was training for the Seoul Olympics in 1988, my day was very straightforward. All of you will understand this when I describe my day. I was up at 5 o'clock. I had a light snack. I was to the pool by 5:30. I would swim from 5:30 till 7:30, home, breakfast, bed. I would be up by 9:30. I'd have another light snack. I'd be at the gym by 10. I'd lift weights from 10 o'clock till 12 o'clock, home, lunch, bed. I'd be back up at 2. I'd have a snack. I'd be back at the pool by 3. I'd stretch from 3 o'clock till 3:30. Knock out 1,000 sit-ups from 3:30 to 4:15, in the water from 4:30 to 6:30, sometimes 7 o'clock to get through all the work, home, dinner, bed. That was it. That's the glamour-filled day of an Olympic athlete when you're serious about going for one of these medals. I speak to financial services companies, and I was talking to a large group one time from Morgan Stanley, and when we got to the Q&A section, I had a young lady put up a hand, and she said, it certainly looks like you slept a whole lot when you were training. And thinking like, you know, that wasn't hard work, but the whole reason for having to rest so much was very simply that the goal of every training workout was to reach that point of exhaustion as soon as possible. And so then you taught yourself physically, but more important mentally, just how to keep going, just how to keep pushing through that. And so that's what my training day looked like. That's what my practice day look like. And this is what often sorts the real professionals out from just the wannabes. I can't tell you how many swimmers I've trained with who had way more talent than I ever had. They just couldn't put in the work, and they couldn't put in the effort day after day after day. I'm relatively short when it comes to an Olympic swimmer. I'm 6 foot. I only have size 10.5 feet. Our son has size 13 feet. He's 6'4", and I would have died for that. But I had to work. You know, I had to put in the work and do that diligently. And so eventually then I came across to Cal before the Olympics and was on a swimming scholarship at UC Berkeley. That's how I ended up coming to the States. And so swam with a phenomenal team there. And so I was swimming with them from 86 onwards, but in 1988 went back home to New Zealand to then put in that work for those set months. And so thinking about what I just mentioned, you know, what do you have to be practicing? And what do you have to be doing over and over and over again to become proficient in it? And it's becoming more difficult to do these days because we're so, as a culture, we're so enamored by things changing quickly, by a new picture coming up very, very quickly. When you think of Twitter and limited number of characters now, when you think of the images that we're seeing on Facebook and LinkedIn, everything's rotating very, very quickly. And before we know it, we've formed the habit of being easily distracted. And again, I want to encourage you to learn how to focus if you're struggling with it, but to take pride in doing that because it is becoming a rare commodity to be able to diligently apply yourself over the long haul. It's becoming hard to find, and yet it's so wonderful when you do see it in someone because you know that they have a degree of perseverance that is admirable and will indeed pay great dividends down the track. So what are those things that you need to be practicing? Be it, you know, it's very hard right now because normally in examples that I mentioned, I talk about fitness and going to the gym, and well, the gym's closed, and it's really it's a more challenging time. But again, what are the habits that you want to shed between now and when we do get back out and being able to work out? If you're running a business from home, what are literally the lines that you have to mark out where you separate office life from family life and have that respected by family, but also where you respect that for yourself? Where you leave the computer and you put down the 2 or 3 priorities to take care of the following morning and resist the urge to just have the office day kind of meld into family time, but where you're diligent about the work day's done and now it is quality family time. So just some things maybe that are a little more relevant today with what we're all going through regarding practice, because then the opportunity to perform comes. And in Seoul in 1988, my race was on September the 22nd. It was the men's 200 meters backstroke. And so up until that point, I had been training for 13 years. I had a goal time. I had a goal time of 2 minutes. And as a quick question to you, think about this. Having trained for 13 years, was I guaranteed that I would swim 2 minutes for that race? And the answer is no. And so as a second question, even if I swam 2 minutes, was I guaranteed of a medal? And of course the answer is no. But that's what passion will do. Passion will take you into areas, it'll push you through boundaries where most people will back off and say, the risk, the downside is just too big. But that's what passion will do for you, especially when you're serious about going to the Olympics and winning a medal. So I was in lane 1 I qualified 7th fastest. We swam the heats in the morning. We'd swim heats in the morning, finals back at night, a little different from how things are today. And this is back in the dark ages. And so I came back at night, actually right after my heat in the morning. A guy from Radio New Zealand found me. I had swum my heat. I'd found a bathroom just for the athletes, and I was on my knees, and I was actually sick just through exhaustion, through nerves. Remember, and it's great talking to an older audience, because you'll remember back we had the 1980 boycott in Moscow, where half the world stayed away, the Western countries stayed away, and I was at the 1984 Olympics in LA, but then the Eastern Bloc countries stayed away. So everyone knew at these Olympics that this is the first real Olympics for 12 years. And so just with the pressure that you go through, I'd had to sit around and wait for 5 days after the opening ceremony before I swam. So I raced out, found this little bathroom, was on my knees, was a little sick, and in burst this guy from Radio New Zealand. And he said, "It's just come through. You've made a final. You're now in one of the top 8 in the world, and there are no Australians in there," which for a New Zealander is very, very important. But he mentioned that there are no Australians there, and now you're in the final. And he said, "Now you're sick." And he jammed his mic down at me, and I hopped up, and I said, "No, I'm ready for this day." I said, "I've trained for it. We've prepped for it. I've been here 1,000 times. And we're ready to go." And I'll never forget what he said next. He looked at me and he said, "Well, it doesn't matter. Top 8 in the world is phenomenal. Whatever happens tonight is a bonus. Pressure off. Just go out and enjoy it." And when I got back to the New Zealand team, that was their response as well. No one has made a final yet. Up until that point, New Zealand had never had an individual male or a male win an individual swimming medal. And so obviously to be able to do that, the first step is to make a final. And so I didn't need to hear people telling me that what I had done was good enough. You know that in 5 hours, you're going to go back out onto that pool deck, and you're going to hurt like you've never hurt before. You know you're going to pay the price because you've prepped for it, but it's still going to hurt. And you don't need people telling you to ease off. So I say that because I do want to encourage you to be very careful about who you permit to influence you, and what you permit to influence you, especially in this year, especially in this election year. I mean, already just the headlines, the animosity that's out there. Be careful about filtering that. And for those of you who have children, again, encourage them to filter that carefully. A lot of stuff, a lot of the tone we just don't need to be listening to. So I got away from that approach. I came back that night. I was in lane 1 of 8. That made me 7th fastest. In New Zealand, it's called second to last, and who cares was my attitude. I'm back with a shot, and that's all I need. And it's nerve-wracking because you see they had us in a tiny room, and I saw the world record holder walk in. And if you've all seen Jurassic Park, it's very much like that. These guys are just in slow motion. They just lumber in, and their knuckles drag on the ground, and they look massive, and they're like, they've all got to be at least 7 foot tall. And it's a daunting time. And it's a time where if you don't stay focused on what matters most, you're going to get distracted by everything else and fold at that point. And so you've got to be able to focus under the pressure. When you go out onto pool deck, the crowd goes crazy. I was in lane 1. At the end of the first lap, I turned in 7th place. And there's a question that I pose to every audience, and it's this. At the end of the first lap of a 4-lap race at the Olympic Games, do they hand these out? And the answer is no, they don't. And why I point that out is because it's not over. There's so many people give up too soon. Anybody can start the race. Anybody can start a marathon. That's easy to do, but it's the finishing that matters. Just like we're going through now, both as a nation and as the world, you know, Q1, we finally got to the end of the first quarter, and it's not over. And so relative to year-end results, you're going to hear some amazing stories, and there'll be down the track 9 months, 12 months from now. You're going to hear our Olympic athletes that were already getting prepped for July. It's not going to happen for them, but they know it's not over because it's going to happen July of next year. Right now, they'll be filming the stories. NBC will be filming the documentaries, believe me, on all the athletes that were in with a shot, and they'll be replaying them next year when they win medals and casting everybody's mind back to this time. So at the end of the second lap, I turned in 5th place. Midway down the 3rd lap, there's a question, and the question is, what are you going to do now? Because now it's starting to hurt. And I remember thinking, just go. And when I turned off the 3rd turn, I saw I was in 4th place. I was top of the scoreboard because I was in lane 1. So when I looked up, and I didn't look at the board, but I just saw it and saw I was in lane 1. I was in 4th place, and I remember thinking, just go. Just go. Someone's got to die, but it's not going to be you. And just go. And driving down that last lap and coming back for the last couple of strokes, seeing a flash go up on the scoreboard. So it registers 1 is gone. But you don't slow down, and then driving back for the very last stroke and seeing another flash go across the board. So it registers that 2 have gone, there's 1 left, and you'll do anything to get your hand on that wall next. You'll break your fingers, you'll break your hand, you don't care, you've just got to get there. And lunging back and hitting and seeing a flash, and then in a split second seeing another flash on the board. And I looked up and saw lane 1, P. Kingsman, NZL ... 3. And it registered that I'd won a medal. And just the feeling that goes through you, the exhaustion, the emotions that it's all done, it's over, and then the fatigue really hits. They were getting us out for the medal presentation, and in burst this guy from Radio New Zealand, the same guy who was there in the morning after my heat. And I was trying to put on my shoes. I was down on the floor. I was tying them up, and he came running up to me, and he jammed his mic down at me, and he said, "You did it! You did it!" I looked up and I said, "Thanks." He said, "That was the greatest race I've ever seen." I said, "Thanks." He said, "Do you realize how close the 4th guy was to you?" I said, "I don't care." And he said, "I'll tell you, the 4th guy was 4/100ths of a second behind you." And so think about that. That medal there, if I was 5/100ths of a second slower, would now be over in Germany. And 2 years later, when I actually looked at the swim, one of the things I noticed was the guy who came 4th to me on his last 3 strokes looked across at me twice. And it was easily 4/100ths of a second, easily. And so it showed me the cost of distraction. And lives were changed that day because of it. And so it's one of the messages that I love sharing, and especially with Rotary groups, because again, as a fellow Rotarian, you know the work that you put into the community, and just the neat stuff, the neat opportunities that you all get as a Rotary Club. But especially personally, and for those of you who have had businesses impacted and affected, hang in there, but spend your time focusing on what you can change. And I don't say that lightly, because I'm aware a lot of people have been impacted by this. But nevertheless, tomorrow comes. And so consider those aspects of your life that you're going to focus on, that you can make a difference in, that you can have a positive impact in. And so, as I said, there's nothing magical about getting these medals. There's no secrets. I see all these books, there's secret to this and the secret to, there's no secret. It's a matter of diligence, it's a matter of applying yourself, and it's a matter of not getting distracted and just getting the job done. So it's fun sharing with you today, and I want to encourage you to pursue what it is that you're focused on. Are there any questions? I'm just wondering if any questions have come through.
Paul, I've looked at the chat and I haven't seen any questions yet. If anybody would like to send questions out either to everybody via chat, or send it to me, or send it to Paul, he'd be glad to answer your questions. Sure. You go to the bottom of your screen, you click the more, and you'll see chat.
And no, I won't put the swimsuit on if anyone asks. So let me preempt that right now. So often I do get asked about the guy who came fourth. We never met. We've never had a chance to speak at all. So never had a chance to talk to him. The guy who won the race, Igor Polyansky, was a Russian guy. He now lives in New Zealand and now coaches down there. So yeah, we had the chance to actually race against each other 10 years after 1998 down in New Zealand when they'd moved there. And we raced a 50-meter backstroke. And I won, but just. it was close. How many calories a day were you consuming? Probably as many as I'm doing now without the 6 hours of training. So I didn't really pay attention to the amount of calories, but the quality of food was what we paid attention to. So a lot of vegetables, a lot of water, stayed away from fast food, stayed away from any simple sugars, as much of that as I could. And so that's really all you're doing is eating, sleeping, and working out. You do burn off a lot of calories through the actual workout, but the one thing that I was always aware of, and that I'm becoming more aware of now especially, is that you're fueling the next performance by what you're eating now. So I know, for instance, if I eat too late in the evening, I'm gonna wake up sluggish the next morning. So with the diet, you're always thinking ahead. Okay, I'm going to fuel my body with this at 7 in the morning. How do I want to be feeling at 3 this afternoon? Because I can dictate that by what I'm about to eat now. So when I was swimming, it was always high quality stuff. While I'm aware of those questions now, sometimes I won't answer them as strictly as I used to.
Okay, Paul, I've got another question for you sent in by Catherine. She wanted to know where you went to school and what you studied.
So I was at high school back in New Zealand, but when I came over here to Cal, I was at UC Berkeley, and I was studying political science at the time. I always wanted to go into politics. And so actually when I retired and got married and my wife and I were back in New Zealand, I was approached by a very, very wealthy businessman down there to set up a political party, which I didn't have any interest in for 2 reasons. We hadn't been married for more than a year, and I'm a big believer in you don't focus on anything outside of that for the first year. But secondly, I always believe if you have the portfolio for education and you can influence children, that was always a big deal to me. So I finished at Cal, and then I went on to get my master's degree when we came back to the US at Golden Gate Baptist Seminary. And I did that while I was working at Morgan Stanley. I did that over 7 years because I was just taking one class a semester. So I got my master's in theological studies at Golden Gate Baptist University. Did that while I was at Morgan Stanley, and also did that while I was a jail chaplain. I was a jail chaplain for 15 years in San Rafael, in the sheriff's department there.
Okay, I don't see any more questions. Does anybody have any? Once again, you can use the chat. Go down to the bottom of your screen, the 3 dots, click chat, and send a message to everybody, or send it just to me.
And I see one of the ones there from I think Sunny. What were the obstacles? Was that? What were some of the obstacles during training? Staying mindful, keeping people's opinions at arm's length. You're always polite, and you're always a lot of people mean well. But it was being able to diplomatically keep them at arm's length. A lot of people would offer advice about what they thought I should be doing and how they thought I should be training, and they'd talk with my coach about that, and we'd just nod our head, and we stuck with our plan. So that was one of the tougher things, particularly being in New Zealand. It's a smaller country. So we were the only Kingsmen at that stage in New Zealand, and so it was very easy to find. So oftentimes people would, call me up and let me know they knew of me and offer me advice and didn't even know me. So that got to be a challenge sometimes. Somebody asked, do I still swim? I just started back again at Gold's Gym. I work out at Gold's Gym here, and then, of course, the gym's closed. Now, that's not an excuse, but yeah, so it's really been the first time I've gotten back on the water and actually love it. I'm surprised at how much I've been enjoying it up until the gym was closed.
Okay. Thank you, Paul. That was I agree with Dee. Thank you to Kathy for kind of giving us a summary of some of the topics and points you made. And I agree with Dee Kivett, who wrote on there. This is very a timely topic because it's really, I find it very hard to focus right now, working from home with my wife working from home, my college senior trying to do a score from home. So it is hard to focus, and we really need to keep our eye on the finish line. So hope we'll all be able to soon. But thank you for being with us today.
You're very welcome. It's been a pleasure.
For a message, I hope now that you're in Greenville, you need to join our club, and we'll see you a lot more frequently. We can ask you questions in person.
So I visited your club once, and I visited a load of Rotary clubs, spoke at a lot of regional meetings, and you by far have the best food of anyone. And I love the idea of meeting just once every 2 weeks. Very practical.
Yeah,
so,
we do have great food. And we actually had a couple comments from people who said their lunches aren't nearly as good today. I can relate. Haven't eaten it yet. Do want to just point out this is only our second missed meeting, and but the West End is closed the entire month of April. So there are some meals that we've really paid for, and the board will be meeting next week, and it's really hard to really develop a plan because we don't know how long this is going to last. But we will be talking about what type of plan we can come up with and what to do with that meal money, and we'll be reporting back to you as soon as we can. So I want everybody to know that. Also, I want to point out that Lewis Redmond's mother passed away, and so please keep Lewis and his family. That's also would be John Redmond's sister-in-law. So please keep them in your thoughts and prayers. And again, it's so great to see everybody. It's really fun to see you in your offices or wherever you're working from. Bob, I'm glad you could join us. Flash did a great job on the member news. We'll look forward to seeing him again sometime in the future too. So, and now this time that we're not together, remember, if you're interested in making a contribution to CART or Rotary Foundation, you can send your money or checks or call Michelle and give her a credit card number. Make sure we can keep up with the great work that Rotary International is doing. And we will have a meeting again in 2 weeks. And I'm very pleased at how well this Zoom has gone. So I hope you are too. And we'll really do it because we'll be doing it again in 2 weeks. And I don't know if there's no other. I'm looking to see. Oh, you want to see Flash at the Western Poinsett? Yep. So we will look at. I'm getting some suggestions in chat, so thank you all for those. But it's kind of hard to read and talk at the same time. I really need to focus. So anyway, if there are no other things for the club, let's kind of end by reciting the 4-way test. So this will be interesting. But I can tell I can see your lips to make sure you're doing it at home. So I just want to let you know that. So of all the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? I hope everyone has a wonderful day, the remainder of the week, and I look forward to seeing everyone in 2 weeks. Thank you, and God bless you.